this inner knowing that basically created this question that asks, would you like to go further? It could have been to heaven, or it could have been other realms, or would you want to go back? And that moment, instantly, I said, I'm not ready to die. I don't want to die yet.
Hello, passionate listeners and watchers. Welcome to Passion Harvest. I am Luisa, your host. Thank you so much for joining me wherever you are in the world right now. Our guest today is Tyler Deal. He died during a mountain bike accident. During his near-death experience, Tyler Deal floated above his body and over the redwood forests. Tyler suffered from severe depression prior to his near-death experience, and afterwards he was instantly changed. This is his story and this is his passion. Tyler, welcome to Passion Harvest. I'm so excited to share your experience today.
Thank you, Luisa. Thank you for letting me be here and inviting me on your great show. I love watching the videos that you put out, and you have wonderful content and a wonderful community here. So thank you.
Tyler, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. I guess I'd like to start with your profound near-death experience, a little bit of background leading up to it, and what you actually experienced when you died.
So I was alone. I was going to college. I was doing okay in classes. I wasn't doing great, but I was doing okay. I never felt like I was the kind of person that could talk to other people. I was very shy, and I just felt like nobody was experiencing what I was experiencing, until I later found out that, a lot of people do get depressed, and there's that sense of feeling very alone within that emotion. So over the course of about 2 years, I started to say, it was like a mantra, started to repeat, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. And I always had a belief in the divinity and the divine and God, whatever anybody's word for that greater source, that greater power is. So I would talk to the divine and say, please take me. I can't stand this depression, this pain that it's causing me. Please take me. I don't want to be here anymore. And it became stronger and stronger. And then at the end of my second year, the last semester, was in May in 1997. I was 20 years old, and I I just basically said, okay, I'm done. I don't want to be here anymore. And about 4 days later, I would say roughly, give or take, that's when I had my NDE. And it happened in the redwood forest. It was morning time. I was biking in the forest, and I took a path that was very familiar to me. It was a bike path, and it had several jumps going downhill. And I took the last jump, which was also something I knew, but as soon as I had taken that jump, I realized that somebody had tweaked it. They had built it up. They had made it practically a vertical jump. And it was too late once I hit it, though, because I knew, how your muscle memory kind of gets used to certain things when you're doing sports. So my body wasn't used to that. So when I hit it, I knew I was going to die, or something bad was going to happen. And I didn't have a helmet on. It wasn't something that I never had a helmet. So as soon as I hit it, I was like, okay, I'm done. My body kind of froze up, but it didn't really, like, I didn't do any, it happened so fast. It wasn't like I could jump off the bike or anything. It just happened so fast. I hit the jump, I flew way up, and then I came down on my front tire, my handlebars. I rolled, I hit my head, and my back hit, and it was like a big thump. And that big thump on the ground is basically when I had lost consciousness at that moment. And the next thing I remember, I was not me, not like an astral projection, like my body had taken off, but it was like me as awareness, I guess would be the best way to say it, as consciousness was floating around above the redwood trees. They're anywhere, the second generation redwood trees are anywhere from 250 up to 350 feet, very tall. And I was in this place of complete peace and familiarity. I felt like this was a part of me that just felt very comfortable. And I began to experience sensations, but it was like physical sensations that we have here in our bodies, but it was very different and very magnified. So I could see, I could sense the trees, I could see the detail in the trees, the the little bugs, the little dew needles, the fog that creates the dew on the tips of the needles. I could hear dogs barking miles away. I could hear birds chirping. So it was hearing them far away, but it was also like they were right there in my ears as well. I could see with my vision the ocean, which was about 10 miles, 5 to 10 miles away, but I could also hear the crashing of the waves. I could feel the wind moving through me as if I was translucent. I could feel the wind moving through me. And so I was experiencing this. It felt new, but it felt very familiar as well. And I remember looking down at my body, which was there on the ground, and thinking, okay, well, that's my body, that's me, but that's not the real me. I remember thinking that's the depressed body that had experienced all this suppression and depression for so many years. And at that moment, it was like comparing that body with my experience. At that moment, it was like a direct cognition. It wasn't a question. I didn't hear any angels or anybody talking to me. It was this inner knowing that basically created this question that asked, would you like to go further? Like, would you like to go, I don't know. It could have been to heaven, or it could have been other realms, or do you want to go back? And that moment, instantly, I said, I'm not ready to die. I don't want to die yet. And as soon as I said that, I was back in my body, on the ground, surrounded by the trees, breathing, trying to it's like bringing my spirit back into my body, and breathing and having trouble breathing. It's almost like you get your breath knocked out of you and you're trying to create all that oxygen flow again. So, and so once there was enough oxygen, then I began to feel a tremendous amount of pain throughout my body. And it was the neuromuscular, neurological pain. It was full body. I could feel it everywhere from the tingling to the top of my head, all the way down to my toes. And it was stabbing, electrical, throbbing pain. And I couldn't move. It was the only thing I could really do is open my eyes. And as my eyes began to open, I began to have this experience. Beings were flying around me. They were kind of like coming in and dive bombing me. You can think of almost like little damsels that can move all directions. They were doing that as well. They had wings. They had like the two coming up and two coming down. Some of them were different skin colors. Some of them had like these garments on. Some of them were naked, and I didn't hear any English, but I heard little giggles and almost like little and then I began to feel the redwood trees like really strong, and I began to hear this vibration, this ringing. it was similar to what the like a Tibetan singing bowl, but it had its own, like its own signature, its own consciousness. And these trees were sending these sound tones, and with I guess you could say, a complementary healing energy with them. So I could hear them, but I could also just feel it moving throughout my whole body. It was like this wash of energy. And so I felt like I was very supported coming back into my body at that moment. And at the same time, my attention was then brought back, after experiencing this for a while, back to the pain, back to my breathing, my heavy breathing. And that's when I had decided to, like, my consciousness to stop, or to just go out, like blackout. So that was, and there's no sense of how long I was laying on the ground, or I was, floating above the trees. The next thing I remember was I woke up in a hospital. There's a community hospital, small little hospital there in town. And I don't remember going in the ambulance or anything like that. And I remember a doctor was there, and he was asking me a series of questions, how are you doing? What's your name? I didn't have any memory of who I was, what my name was, or anything like that. It started to slowly come back over the days. And I had to learn how to be here back on this planet, and heal myself and try to find ways to live a happy life again.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that experience. I know it's really hard to put in words, but you did a really good job. Just my interpretation, it sounds like when you were above the trees that you were almost connected to everything.
Yeah, and it's taken me kind of a few years afterwards to recognize that really there was no separation, and it felt like everything knew each other. Like the trees knew the ocean, knew the birds, knew the dogs barking. It wasn't how humans can separate everything in our minds. How we can do that. It felt like everything knew itself, and it supported each other. That was the feeling, because I felt like I was supported there.
When you were lying, when you came back to sort of semi-consciousness, and you saw these, I'm just going to describe them as fairies around you, that sounds like an incredible experience. These nature spirits or elementals. Were they friendly? Were they communicating with you in some way telepathically?
So it wasn't so much telepathic. I think it was, as far as words are concerned, it was telepathic in the sense of energy or joy, or a feeling of lightness. And that was their main message. It was to bring lightness to a situation that was quite hard and heavy. And I know with like children, they experience elementals. There's kids that I've spoken with, and you hear it all the time, that kids can connect with fairies is because their hearts are really open. And when your heart's really open, your inner vision begins to open more, and that joy, that frequency of that energy of joy is what attracts it. I wasn't in that space of joy, however, so it was a little bit different than one might expect, connecting to elementals. It was in a very hard place, a very traumatic moment in my life right there, but they were still there, and they were communicating to me that, like, it's okay. And I felt, I guess you could say, love. It was also joy, but it was just bringing lightness to the situation, along with the trees coming in and communicating in the way that they did as well.
Your choice to return to your physical body, have you ever had doubts about that?
I had doubts for many years, specifically as I was dealing with what felt like more depression, what felt like not just depression, but anger and resentment, and confusion about my life's path and what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And so I felt like for many years, I felt like that was dumb. Why did I come back? It was so beautiful up, where I was, and I could have explored more. And it took me a while to actually figure out that part of me that we're all kind of trying to return to, that's always there, that part that knows everything and is connected to everything, knew what was best for me. And to be on this planet at this time was something that I had decided, long time ago, and it would be best to return and to live out my my life, for however long that seems to be.
You mentioned that your depression continued after your near-death experience, but how was your life profoundly changed after the experience? Maybe not instantly, but moving forward.
My ability to feel at a very deep level, like sometimes I can feel like a little ant crawling on a tree, and the communication between the tree and the little ant. Animals sometimes. I have a couple cats, and they will project pictures to me, like if they're ready to eat or if they want some love. Also, feeling what other people feeling at a very deep level, and it's very interesting because it's almost like that separation that we experience here on Earth, that has begun to dissolve more and more. So actually, whatever I'm experiencing, what I'm perceiving on the outside, is actually what's happening on the inside as a molecular experience. So if somebody's feeling depressed or something's going on with them, I know there's something within me that needs to be looked at.
It's very interesting because you talk about return to wholeness and loving self, which is very hard for people. But I just want to quickly ask you, when we experience emotions from others or have negative or positive experience in our external landscape, what you mentioned I thought was important, that really we need to reflect within ourselves. There's something going on with ourselves.
Yeah, so from my understanding, whoever comes into our lives, the experiences that we have, the emotions that we feel, the thoughts that we have, those are shared memories. So we have shared memories with people. And when we have these shared memories, it's actually, we go within to help make a correction within ourselves. It brings us into a place of responsibility and harmony. And we're not blaming ourselves, but it's actually bringing balance back into relationships with all life, because we're always in relationships with people and our environment and everything around us. Maybe there's a marriage or a relationship that's having a really difficult time. The idea of looking within ourselves and bringing that love to that part that feels hurt or misunderstood or resentment or guilt, whatever that is, and bringing love to that part, then whatever we can do within ourselves to make that correction, to bring that love for ourselves, it's just automatic. It does project out, and it does change. It does begin to change our environment.
It can be challenging, but relationships are in a way a mirror, holding up a mirror to the self. I get this question all the time, and you talk about this as well. How do we love ourselves individually more? How to have self-love? What are your tips for self-love? It's a hard one.
Yeah, it is a hard one, and it's an interesting one too, as if like we have a separate part of us to love, right? I mean, it's kind of a dichotomy, those words, self-love. Like, how do we love ourselves? Who's the one loving the self? So for me, it's a mantra. So as soon as something comes up with another person, there's a friction with somebody, and it can be very difficult. I feel that within myself as something that I need to look at. So that's the part that needs to be loved. So how do I do that? For me, it's saying I love you. As simple as that. I love you. and repeating that until I feel it.
Wonderful advice and a great way to end this episode. Tyler, thank you so much for being on Passion Harvest, and thank you for sharing your experiences. I know it's hard to put into words, but you did a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luisa. It's been an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
It's been fun. Thanks, Tyler.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you liked this episode, please do subscribe for weekly passionate, inspirational interviews.